our president, Donald Trump, and how, I mean, he's been cooking this last day on Truth Social. He's just been, and I appreciate his humor. I really do appreciate his humor. So we're absolutely going to be getting to the military parade and things that were happening in China. But I do first appreciate what Donald Trump has been doing when it comes to pointing out, the evil of people like Gavin Newsom, where using humor in order to present the truth. He posted this 15 hours ago. This was great.
I wasn't exaggerating when I said that I received in the mail a Trump 2028 hat from one of his biggest supporters. These guys are not screwing around.
And then at the same time, he actually posted this video. This is a video that has gone quite viral, in fact, a couple weeks ago. And then President Trump himself reposted it. So here we have this punching and kicking bag where you've got Donald Trump, there on the bag, and then you got this guy here with the face of Gavin Newsom. And yeah, you're just going to have to see it for yourself. Okay. I do appreciate that. I really do. Humor is a wonderful thing. But another thing that did happen, and this is really incredible, is how President Trump has been going after the drug dealers coming out of Venezuela, where we have these 11 terrorists, and they were killed in action. They were on their way to the United States in order to bring additional, drugs into the United States. And President Trump said earlier this morning, on my orders, U.S. military forces conducted a kinetic strike against positively identified Tren de Aragua narco-terrorists in the Southcom area of responsibility. TDA is a designated foreign terrorist organization operating under the control of Nicolas Maduro, responsible for mass murder, drug trafficking, sex trafficking, and acts of violence and terror across the United States and Western Hemisphere. And this individual, like Nicolas Maduro, I tell you, he's just like these people that they are partaking of that fruit of the tree of death. They exalt themselves as a god, as just about all communist leaders do. That they are God, and they get to do whatever evil they desire. They get to pursue whatever violent act, genuinely just whatever evil they desire that is contrary to the will of God, and there's not going to be any consequence. And it's like, no, there are going to be consequences in the here and now, and there's going to be consequences, of course, in the hereafter, in the eternities. So here you have Nicolas Maduro, who has been leading this, but no, we're not going to allow this type of evil. So the strike occurred while the terrorists were at sea in international waters transporting illegal narcotics heading to the United States. The strike resulted in 11 terrorists killed in action. No U.S. forces were harmed in the strike. Please let this serve as notice to anybody even thinking about bringing drugs into the United States of America. Beware. Thank you for your attention to this matter. And you have these 11 evil people, these narco-terrorists, bringing drugs and all manner of vile things into the United States, and have been permitted to do so by past presidents for so long. And it's like, one moment they're alive, and next, dead. They didn't know what hit them. They like, in one moment, they are thinking that we get to do whatever we want to do. We get to perform whatever kind of evil we desire. And you need to understand that the types of drugs that they're bringing to the United States, and have been doing so for decades, has led so many Americans, we're talking about hundreds and hundreds of thousands of Americans, into darkness and sin and addiction and death. I mean, this is the types of evil like we're dealing here with Nicolas Maduro is evil that doesn't just destroy physical lives, it destroys eternal lives. It brings people down to hell eternally. And so here we have, in this example, we got 11 people thinking we get to do whatever we want to do and there's not going to be any consequences. And in a moment, in a split, we're talking in a millisecond, they go from 11 being alive to 11 being dead. So quickly, they never even saw it coming. Alive, dead. Just like that. And thrust down into the depths, thrust down into the realm of the dead, where they await judgment from the Almighty God.
The president's been is very intentional here. And I think you're seeing it when it comes to this war. It's a different war on drugs. It's going after the enemy. This is not...
It's not just say no.
No, this is going straight to the source. And he did it with Venezuela. And I thought it was so fascinating because we had the Secretary of Defense yesterday, and he gave us some information about what took place there. But Marco Rubio really brought this home. He said, look, they could have pulled over the boat. They've been doing it for years. The Coast Guard will pull it over. But he goes, the president made it the decision to take it out of the water. Let's watch.
What will stop them is when you blow them up, when you get rid of them. So they were designated as what they are narco-terrorist organizations. So the same information and the same intelligence mechanisms with maybe a higher focus was used to determine that a drug boat was headed towards eventually the United States. And instead of interdicting it on the president's orders, he blew it up. And it'll happen again. Maybe it's happening right now. I don't know. But the point is, the president of the United States is going to wage war on narco-terrorist organizations. This one was operating in international waters, headed towards the United States to flood our country with poison. And under President Trump, those days are over.
Yeah, this is part of a much bigger, let's go meta here. This is a new doctrine. And I think what you're seeing President Trump do is pivot from the old war, from Europe, even from the Middle East, and moving into our own hemisphere. He's saying our neighborhood is the most important thing that we can take care of. And so what you're seeing is he's sending a message not just to the cartels, because the cartels control, they control 40% of the landmass in Mexico. They control all kinds of airspace and waterways. And he's saying no more of this. And it's not just a message to the cartels, and it's not just a message to Nicolas Maduro and even to Claudia Sheinbaum in Mexico, but it is to China. All of this, as you mentioned before, China is in bed with all of these bad actors. And President
Argentina, Ecuador, who's not a bad actor, but they still have deals with them.
Well, there are financial deals there, but also there's on the criminal side as well. They have had free reign in our hemisphere, and President Trump is saying no more. And that's why interdicting isn't enough.
No.
We're going to blow you up. We're going to destroy the cartels. And it's going to send a message to everybody that there's a new sheriff in town.
Couple of things. I'm going to just amend something you said. I think that he is focusing on Central and South America like a president we haven't seen.
Absolutely.
But I think he's doing it all. I don't think he's taking his eyes off the Middle East.
No.
I don't think he's taking his eyes off China. I think he's keeping his eyes on everything. That's what he does. I mean, he's having a tech meeting with all the tech titans, 10-part meeting that begins. At the same time, he's focused on America 250. At the same time, he says Panama Canal, Venezuela, and then we're going to reclaim through the Monroe Doctrine what was put in place in the 19th century. We're going to reclaim the hemisphere, but at the same time, I think he's still keeping his eye on what's happening with Israel and China.
He's keeping his eye on everything, but make no mistake, the southern hemisphere, the western hemisphere is resource rich. All the lithium and all the critical minerals, there's oil, there's so much there. And we've ceded so much of it to China. Ports even, we've ceded to China in our own hemisphere. So this is a new move to say our backyard matters more than what happens miles and miles away. That's kind of MAGA. That's America first, and that's also America's first.
Incredible stuff. I also really did very much so appreciate Donald Trump and how he posted yesterday that tell Hamas, this is another group of these evil people on earth that think they get to do whatever they want, but judgment will always find them and they will always be brought down to their destruction. Tell Hamas to immediately give back all 20 hostages, not 2 or 5 or 7, and things will change rapidly. It will end. But then we get to China. And this was posted 2 days ago. This was September 2nd of this year in the evening, 9:15 p.m. President Trump said this: "The big question to be answered is whether or not President Xi of China will mention the massive amount of support and blood that the United States of America gave to China in order to help it secure its freedom from a very unfriendly foreign invader," referring, of course, to World War II. That when it came to imperialist Japan, the horrors that they did to the Chinese people is, I mean, it's difficult to stomach. It's really, really difficult to stomach. But I'm just going to give you one example. This is something that I read years ago that it really shows, how it shows the bottomless pit of hell that mankind will go down into. It's just that hell is a bottomless pit, and they can go down into the absolute depths of it. Imperialist Japan, they invaded Korea, the Korean Peninsula, and they also invaded China. And this account that I read many years ago is that they lined up Chinese in a nice long line, so say 10, 15, 20 Chinese in a direct line. And then they had a cannon on one side of that line, and they put like a ball and chain in this cannon and fired that ball and chain. Now, what's going to happen to 10, 15, 20 human beings, flesh and blood human beings, when they've got a huge iron ball and chain fired out of a cannon directly at them? It goes right through them. It just takes all 20 of them down in an instant. Goes right through all of them. I mean, really diabolical, horrendous stuff. And we fought against that enemy. We fought against imperialistic Japan during World War II and against Nazi Germany, and we defeated them. Thus, we liberated China from that enemy. Now, unfortunately, the Chinese soon thereafter brought in these evil ideologies of communism, and we had Mao's revolution, which ended up bringing far more evil and destruction upon the Chinese people than anything that happened during World War II with imperialistic Japan. We don't even know the exact number of Chinese that Mao and his revolution brought about, the destruction of how many Chinese. Conservative estimates are about 60 million, but it could be as high as 80 million. We just don't know the number. I mean, the most horrendous of, evils. But still, nevertheless, the reality is that during World War II and even before, say we were brought into World War II with Pearl Harbor, December 7th of 1941, China was under the boot of imperialistic Japan, and the Japanese were doing really horrific things to the Chinese. And we spilt a tremendous amount of American blood to liberate China from that enemy. So we helped to secure its freedom from a very unfriendly foreign invader. Now, many Americans died in China's quest for victory and glory that happened now 80 years ago, 80 years from the end of World War II. And I hope that they were rightfully honored and remembered for their bravery and sacrifice. May President Xi and the wonderful people of China have a great and lasting day of celebration. And then he says this, that's just like, oh my gosh, like just mic drop here. Please give my warmest regards to Vladimir Putin and Kim Jong-un as you conspire against the United States of America. President Donald J. Trump.